well as other drugs. They're using this to treat problems that they have, and they're getting this at home. And we're seeing many difficult situations rise up. Kids on probation, one of the biggest problems we have with them is their drinking, and again, behavior that they're engaging in. It is certainly not what we want, and sometimes leads to very self-destructive acts on their part that requires them to be further involved with the justice system, as well as ruin their lives. So we see all of that here.
I'm Glenn Bates. I was a Waynesburg police officer for 28 years. I'm now fortunate enough to be the magisterial district judge for the 7th district in Greene County. So total I have about 32 years working with underage drinking. Greg very eloquently stated problems with the underage drinking. People who normally wouldn't do certain actions, it seems like alcohol gives them the trigger to do things they normally wouldn't do. People who were jerks to start with are bigger jerks. And we all get to see and enjoy them. But it starts out with the underage drinking, and it leads to many, many other things that we'll talk about here later. And I'll shut up for now and pass it to Chief Lowe.
We have a university in town. It wasn't until fairly recently they did away with the fraternity systems up here. And before that, the fraternities existed, and those were, they promoted drinking as a lifestyle and underage drinking. And we had problems with that, how to handle that. We experimented with that, being a nice guy, okay guys, come on, pour out the beer, and go back to the dorm. Found that didn't work. Most people, they see that as a weakness. So we evolved into a more hard-line approach to underage drinking because we may have been in that area ourselves or doing that ourselves at one time, but let's say we were all smart throughout our lives. It's a very stupid thing to do. Actually, Bates mentioned about the people having their personalities break down so they become jerks or bigger jerks. Again, up at the college there, and we do have underage drinking in the community, for sure, but we had a period of time when there was a lot of riotous behavior up there. I think we must have had a dozen times when we had to respond to riots in progress involving upwards of 60 or more people engaged in fights and bad behavior. And every one of those riotous events involved people who had been drinking, underage people who had been drinking, people who did not know how to control themselves after drinking and under the influence. So it's a big problem for us. It is I believe it's a gateway drug to bigger and badder things. And I don't know that we've ever come across a drug addict that hasn't started out as an underage drinker.
Trooper Lemansky, the state police. I've been a state trooper for 16 years. You asked for my personal experience. Things that come to mind are I've investigated numerous traffic fatalities involving teenagers, and I've lost count of how many times I've had to go knock on someone's door in the middle of the night that has been sleeping, that has no idea anything's wrong, and tell them that their teenager was killed in a traffic collision. And a lot of people may think that policemen get hardened to that kind of thing, and that's our job, we can do that. And that's a big myth. Every single time I have to do that, I get physically sick. And when I have to knock on that door, when I hear the footsteps coming to the door, I put my hands behind my back because they're shaking. And I don't want those parents to see that. and I drive home as fast as I can, and I hug my kids so tight I almost hit them. That is the absolute worst thing that I have to do at work. I'm tired of doing it. I've done it numerous times. And I know I'm talking to adults now, but when I do it, when I speak to teenagers, I try, at the end of what I'm trying to say, I tell them all to close their eyes, and I make them paint a picture in their head of what their front door looks like, and I tell them to imagine me walking to their front door in the middle of the night and knocking at the door, and I tell them to get a picture of what their parents would look like coming to the door. What do they wear in bed? Do they put their slippers on? Do you have a dog that comes to the door when someone knocks? Do you have a little brother or sister? And I make them paint that picture, and then I tell them to imagine me telling their parents that, your son, your daughter was involved in a traffic accident, and I was there, and I saw the paramedics try everything they could, and they couldn't save them. They didn't make it. And I make them paint that picture, and I do get some tears usually out there when I try that. But that's probably the most severe thing that I can do when I talk to teenagers is have them paint that picture, and it's upsetting to them. But if you ask for my personal experience, that's it's upsetting to me. There's all those traffic fatalities involving teenagers. There's little visual things that I can't get out of my head. That graduation tassel hanging on the rearview mirror with blood splattered on it, I can see one. I can tell you the number that was on the last one. I can tell you what color it was. I had a drunk teenager cause a traffic accident where a little girl was killed, and she had very, very thin, light blonde hair. The blood in that blonde hair, I see those things. I can tell you that little girl's name. I can tell you what she was wearing. My personal experience, it's very, very painful and upsetting to me, and I get physically ill every time I have to do it.
Next, we really talk about what are the causes of underage drinking. The question is, what are the root causes of underage drinking?
Poor parenting skills, kids that grow up in families that do not receive a support or have a problem, a parent with a drug or alcohol problem themselves. I mean, a lot of these kids learn that at home. They don't receive a consistent message. They don't receive the attention that they need and the values that they need to stand up to this when they get in school. I mean, every kid is going to go through stages where he's tempted by lots of things, and lots of kids will dabble in stuff. It will seem attractive to them. But if they have strong supports at home, if they have a consistent message at home that says, no, you shouldn't do this, most of them, not all, most of them will come out okay in that situation. But kids that don't have a good home life, because I think the home life is probably the number one thing, they're going to be much more susceptible to peer pressure. They're going to be much more likely to hang out with other kids whose behaviors are less than what you as a parent would determine to be desirable. And kids learn from other kids. They learn from their peers. I mean, peer pressure is simply, peer pressure, we talk about peer pressure like it's some really negative thing, but peer pressure can also be very positive. I mean, everybody wants to belong. Everybody wants to be part of something. And if you are, if the only group that's accepting you, if the only people you're hanging out with are other delinquents or other people that are doing behaviors that are not good, or they're drinking, they're partying all the time, that's what you're going to see with that. And then I always think it's important to say one thing, why do kids drink? I mean, there's something that you don't hear very often, but I think it's just as important. People like the effect that alcohol causes with them, at least temporarily. And the same thing is true with drugs. I mean, there is a pleasurable effect there. That is why kids are attracted to it. They don't do it and ride in pain. If they did, no one would be, engaging in it. And I think we have to recognize that that alcohol, that drugs have a power in and of themselves that many people find attractive. And that's why you have to have those strong values to say, hey, look, maybe this may be great initially, but these are the kind of problems, these are the kind of behaviors that you're going to wind up seeing.
Well, I agree with Craig that the root problem would be our families, parenting skills, different things that are involved in that. Certainly, a child left to themselves will experiment with different things. That's just human nature. We're all going to do that. But you need the back